Welcome to the first episode of our ALLSET Podcast, where we talk about health challenges for the C-suite. In this episode, we talk to Nick Jonsson and how he tackles executive loneliness. Topics we cover include the unique circumstances of executive loneliness, how working out helped him, and most importantly, how we can be more compassionate. Nick's story led to him founding Executive Global Network EGN in Singapore, and we are thankful to have him share his story. This is Jing Chit, founder of ALLSET, a physio and personal training company that helps senior executives feel younger, perform better, and live happier. On top of that, I also run an exercise science education platform, Allwin. Let's get into it. Hi Nick, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Ying.
Yeah, I'm just going to jump right straight into it. You wrote a book, Executive Loneliness, right? And one of the headers is Leaders Hide Their Struggle. I love the header, but I'm just wondering, from your understanding, how common is this and what are the unique circumstances of executive loneliness?
Well, I think the saying goes, it's lonely at the top, and it's very true. The higher up the hierarchy you go, the lonelier it gets. So that's where I got it from. And actually the term executive loneliness first came up by Forbes. So when I researched it and I read about executives and loneliness, I read the article on Forbes and that's where I got the idea from. And that's when I started to interview and survey executives about loneliness.
And how common do you find, according to the survey, is this?
Well, I found out that about 30% of senior executives in Singapore suffer from loneliness from time to time in their job.
And this is from all the way from middle management up to C-suite, or only like at the very top level?
This is basically directors and VPs and above, so nice. Very much the senior level. And that was 30% was in 2019. During the pandemic, when I redid the survey, the number have doubled to 59% in the same group. So when people are working remotely, isolated, working from home, then the loneliness was double.
And what are some of the stories that have come across, your surveys?
Yeah, so in the last question in the survey was, can I interview you? And I was surprised how many wanted to speak with me. So I went to see them and interviewed them one-on-one, of course confidentially. And I could hear a lot of stories. And probably many have held on to those stories. They were too shy to go and see someone, perhaps see a therapist, see a professional person to share the story. And I can remember especially a few who opened up a little bit over the first interview, and then they contacted me afterwards. They wanted to meet again. So it was almost like they were practicing opening up a little bit. And it was one particular lady, a Singaporean, a managing director for a bank, who the second time I interviewed her broke out in tears and really shared her story, which was of extreme isolation in her workplace. You can imagine working in the man's-dominated industry like the bank industry as a female, as an Asian, that she had really to elbow her way up to the top. And she explained to me all how she felt inside, and this was the first time she opened up to anybody about this.
And how about yourself? Did you experience any executive loneliness, as you grew in your career? And does this resonate with you, everything that they mentioned? Like, did you also have to talk to someone, go to someone twice, feel better about it? Yeah. What is your journey like?
Well, all the way from being a child and so on, I guess I was a bit rebellious in the sense that I moved out of my country. I moved to Australia for studying. Then I grew my career here in Southeast Asia over 15 years. And if you're constantly seeking yourself in a new environment, just like if you move to a new city or you move to a new company, you can feel a bit of a beginner. And I constantly done that in my life. So I don't know why I've been looking for these uncomfortable situations, It's obvious if you move to a new country where there's even a new other culture, a different legal system, even a different language, and you cannot understand what people are talking about around you. Of course, you will feel isolated, and you cannot connect so easily. So yes, I have felt it a lot in my jobs, and especially my last job in Indonesia, where I had a big corporate role. I felt quite extreme isolation, and I felt the pressure also to deliver. You are paid as perhaps in a senior management position to be able to handle the pressure and to be able to solve the situations. But if it becomes a lot of conflict in the teams and you are the one to expect to solve it, and when you not really understand what's happening and you perhaps feel a bit isolated or left out, then it's a very lonely place. So yes, I have certainly been there.
In your book, you mentioned like several ways you can tackle executive loneliness. What are some that have particularly worked for you?
Well, in my case, I had to hit rock bottom before I opened up. I was hiding it quite well, just like the most other executives. I call it smiling depression in the book, in the sense that it's a beautiful facade, and behind there, what you find is perhaps not so pretty. In my case, then, it started when my support came only when I spoke up. People couldn't see on the outside that I was suffering. Not even people close to me. But once I decided to tell someone, I told my wife in that case, and she decided to listen. Being a good wife, like the most wives would say, well, let me help you. So she took me to the doctor, and surprised, the doctor listened and helped me. And then before I knew it, I found myself in a support organization, an anonymous support organization with other executives who before had gone through crashes and mental breakdowns, and they were sharing, what worked for them, how they had recovered themselves, and I could see the path, and I listened. Well, if they could go through this, then so could I. And from there on, I had a pretty quick rebound, and I came back.
Now, I can imagine that this is an ongoing battle that, because you stay in that position for quite a while, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and many executives stay in that position for quite a while. Mm-hmm. So do they, go to different solutions, or what are some of the management practices that can tackle loneliness at the workplace?
So, there's different solutions for it. In my case, it was mainly about nutrition, exercise, getting the support by talking, by feeling that I was supported and so on. That was what really brought me back, and that is what I see is working for others as well. To break the isolation means that you speak with people and help you and give you the guidance. Now, to make sure I stay out of that and stay out of trouble, I constantly give back. So most days I'm now a volunteer and support these organizations to help others who are now finding themselves in a difficult place. And as you say, some people stay in the organization for a long time, perhaps for many years, and finding yourself, going to the work, doing the work because you feel the pressure, I need to bring home the money for the family, and forcing yourself to go through that. And of course, it's a slow grinding downward spiral, and we need to break it somehow before it's too late. And it shouldn't have to go as far as it did in my case and in many others. And of course, the solution lies in creating a warmer culture where we discuss things openly. Yeah.
So one thing you mentioned was working out. How did working out exactly help you? In what scenarios? Examples?
Well, I had lost my fitness when I was in that dark space. I didn't exercise anymore. I didn't care so much about the diet suddenly. And that is quite typical. So perhaps the sign is to look out for your friends and family and colleagues. If someone is gaining or losing a lot of weight, changing some patterns, that's perhaps a signal that something is going on. And that was the case here then. As I was coming back, one part of it was to lose weight, and I quickly set up with so many apps and tracking devices, and I got a coach to give me a training plan, fitness coach, and I just followed the plan. It started by 6 kilometer walking a day. That was the basics in the beginning, and then it increased from there. And step by step, I was getting healthier, and it did everything to me. And I call it the natural happy pill, because so many doctors will prescribe you medicine and so on. And I also was subscribed different kind of medicine for the anxiety, the stress, sleeping pills and so on. I took it for a while, but I wanted to really break free from it. And the way I did that was indeed by exercising, and at the same time I could taper off the drugs, so I was off the drugs that the doctor gave me rather quickly.
Now, if I were a senior executive and I have people that I hire, right, how can I do something to make sure they don't feel so lonely? What are some of how can we be more compassionate, and what are some tangible action that we can take?
Well, it's all about authentic leadership and basically leading by example. And you as the top leader have to show that you are also human. You are also going through difficult times, challenging times. We will all have crises in our lives. We will have perhaps death in the family, accidents, and things will happen, and it's about being vulnerable then and sharing what you're going through to the team members so that they see that it's okay to say that you're not okay, and just try not to be always, the one that holding it all together, because no matter what your position you're in, you're also human. You also have feelings, and you need to dare to show them. And that is the most important thing here, is that this has to start from the top. If you have a boss who has a closed-door policy, who don't talk to anyone about feelings and what's happening, who don't interact naturally with the team, then the team will definitely not come and knock the door and dare to open up to this leader.
With that insight, we've come to the end of our first episode of our ALLSET podcast. Thank you for tuning in. If you have a health-related story that more C-suite should care about, please feel free to reach out to us. We'll be happy to have you on the show. If not, till next time, take care.